be recorded, and we will later make this available on YouTube. So you could, if you liked it, if you find some stuff that was relevant, you can share it later with your colleagues internally by sharing with them the YouTube link. So the purpose of this monthly webinar is, as always, to give you a little bit of an overview of what is happening with Vizlib, on a monthly basis. I know we're releasing a lot of stuff very quickly. We're very agile. Obviously, we've improved our communication by, setting up a Vizlib community. But, it's always nicer to see some of the stuff that we have released and developed live in action. Seeing is believing, as Click says. But more importantly, also to show you a little bit what we're working on, what's coming up next. And when I say next, actually, the stuff that I'm going to show to you will be available in the next 10 days. So it's really, really, really almost there, and might be very, very relevant to you and your plans around app development. The agenda today is to give you a little bit update about Vizlib news. Then I'm going to show you some stuff that we released on the Vizlib Table, which is not so exciting, but very material around conditional Schönheit. The Vizlib Pie Chart that we released ahead, actually, of the November release, and give you an update on our printing from story mode to PDF to PowerPoint, which has been like an ongoing request and an ongoing thing for most of you who are using story mode for the past couple of months. So this is kind of to show you where we are, and which is actually very positive. And I think I'll focus on that today a lot, is the coming up next on our roadmap. So the Vizlib sheet menu, to give you a glimpse of how it looks like, and also a KPI enhancement that we've kept secret from you so far. Cool. With Vizlib, obviously, to show you a little bit more about our company, I would like to start with giving you some company news. So first of all, I'm very, very, very excited that we have onboarded now Juste, who is our new marketing manager since November. For those of you who have been following our blog post, you will be familiar with her. She has been writing a lot of blog posts. She has been involved more and more and more, and we are finally very, very excited to have her on board on a full-time basis to help us with our marketing strategy. She brings a lot of new ideas, but rather than doing all the talking, I actually have Juste on the call, so I will give her the opportunity to quickly introduce herself. Juste, can you hear us?
Hey guys, can you hear me and see me?
Yeah. All good.
So as Martin said, my name is Juste. I am the new marketing manager here at Vizlib. You can see a lot of random facts about me on the screen. Don't ask me about it just now. So as someone who's got a lot of experience in consumer-focused marketing, I think one of my first missions here at Vizlib will be to make sure that the way we talk about data visualizations is as fun, engaging, and user-friendly as Vizlib's extensions are. So I will be taking over the blog, the emails, the social media channels. You will see me everywhere. And I've got a few really interesting projects cooking in the pipeline. So keep a close eye on Vizlib. But in the meantime, if you have any content requests, if you need any technical content or perhaps inspirational content, please don't hold yourself back. Reach out via Twitter, LinkedIn, email, or any other channel you can find us on. And I really hope that we will be able to produce this sort of valuable and cool content that will help you make the best out of Vizlib extensions. So that's me. Handing back to Martin.
Thank you very much, Juste, for the introduction. So yeah, we're equally excited, and many more new additions to the team should follow in January. So, but I'll leave that to the next webinar. So we are definitely expanding, we're growing the team, and we will see what that means also for you as Vizlib customers. So continuing, I'm really, really excited actually. So for those of you who know, we have run a Vizlib KPI challenge the past couple of weeks. And actually on Monday, we went through all the submissions that we had just to see, what has been created, what has been made using our Vizlib KPI. And this is something that we have now summarized and that will be made available to you on the link at the bottom. So we had 11 submissions. Some of them are really cool, just like the Matrix KPI at the top, created by Meti, or the League of Legends, actually KPI at the bottom right, by one of our own developers in that sense. So yes, the competition has been closed. The submission have been entered. So now we actually, I think as we speak, if not after the webinar, the full details of the submissions will be made available public, and we encourage you vote, have a look, and choose your favorite KPI. They will make itself as a preset to our KPI. And more important, you can also download all the individual KPI apps, ClickSense apps, if you want to get some inspiration. That's all available for you there. So making you aware of that, and it's actually very exciting. There's a prize to win, so make sure that you do vote. The contenders have the possibility to win t-shirts and also like an Amazon voucher for their efforts. Cool. So this is about the news, and more things will come obviously now in the next couple of months as we grow. But at the same time, I would like to now focus a little bit more on the interesting part, relevant part, like what are the latest updates. A small iteration, but very important, and I mentioned that last time, is our Vizlib community. It's currently in beta phase as we are, refining it, as we are ultimately improving it as such, but this will play a very material role in the enablement. The Vizlib community will be here for you guys to see, all the release notes when something is being updated, give you a platform to create feature requests, which can then be upvoted or commented on, just to see what else is kind of in the pipeline coming from other Vizlib users. But more importantly, we'll be adding more and more solutions and examples into the Vizlib community, which brings me to the point, enablement, right? So I think most of the people here on the call, and I recognize you, you're very familiar with Vizlib, but as you are deploying this to your user audience, your audience is asking you, how do I use Vizlib? So the goal is to redirect them to the Vizlib community, answer their most frequent asked questions, but also more importantly, to show a couple of cool examples and use cases of how some stuff can be implemented. I'm going to quickly show you around how the Vizlib community looks like. So it's basically simple, community.vizlib.com. It's recognizing it's linked with your user account. So you will actually also have the ability to submit a ticket over here. And that's actually quite important because it allows you to add some additional information that's typically necessary, like a Google Chrome browser, ClickSense version, and which Vizlib extension we're talking about. At the same time, you will also have an overview of your existing tickets. So, I know there's some emails that are being sent, but if you want to see what has been raised, that actually gives you a good way to organize, plus also see which ones are awaiting a reply, which is a bug fix awaiting a release, so to let you organize these things a little bit nicer. But also, the solutions, so, how to install Vizlib, so you can come in here, you can go to the general and see how, give perhaps your IT team instructions how to install the latest version of Vizlib if you want to, all with a nice step-by-step guide, and that will become more and more material. The same also goes around the forum. And actually, here's one thing that I want to put emphasis on because we're being asked that a lot. So we have one forum here, which is solely focusing around what is new in Vizlib. If you click here, you will get a list of all the latest updates when and as they are released. Not all of them are, big. Some of them are just, support for printing, some like tiny minor fixes. But generally, you will have, for example, if you look here, if you click at the forum, you will see a list of enhancements and also bug fixes if there are any. The cool feature here is that you can follow this post. So if you click on this button here at the top while you're logged in, it will then send you an email whenever something new is released, and you'll get a nice short summary. Hey, a new version of the Vizlib table is out. That's what's changed. So that's kind of like one way how we're helping you to keep you informed. Obviously, you can also stick to our monthly webinars, which is a little bit slower, but it's up to you how you wish to be informed about Vizlib. Second also is a feature request panel. So here you will have the ability to create feature requests. and that can be commented on publicly. So we can then discuss it together, and then you see which ones are being in progress, which ones have been implemented and planned. This is just to avoid, for yourself as well, kind of having 5 people raising the same request, but also being able to see, what other cool ideas are out there, allowing you to upvote them and comment them to increase importance. So, and this will expand ultimately. This will become more and more material. And the important thing is index. So if you want to have a question, you just type in here installation, and you see it's immediately searching through all available forum posts, tickets, whatever that is. So it's actually quite quick. So do use it, obviously, and this will become more important, and give us your feedback how we can improve it even further. But I would like to wear awareness of that. Cool. Continuing with that, the first kind of change that happened in the last 30, 40 days, and that is actually quite relevant, is some feature improvements on the Vizlib table. So the three most important elements here is obviously the support for PDF and PowerPoint export in story mode. So a lot of you guys are using stories within ClickSense, and we appreciate the necessity and the value of that. And so far, we always had a struggle to support not stories, that was always working, but more the exporting to PDF, exporting to PowerPoint. So with this, obviously we want to support that capability as well because of that pixel perfect formatting that we offer. So we released that now, the capability with the Vizlib Table, and I'll comment on what the rest of the library as well will look like. We had a lot of stability improvements, some minor bug fixes that have been found, and very important calculation condition. So for those of you who've been using, don't forget, the Vizlib Table was released in April 2017. In 2017, there has not been, there was no show and hide provided by the Vizlib engine. So what we did, and we were kind of the first ones to introduce it, what we introduced back then was the so-called visibility condition. So, and this would ultimately just hide the whole column, right? So this allowed you to add a dimension and hide it, and also create some custom reports where you would obviously, allow the user to select your dimension and measures. Now, there were 2 problems with that. One problem was if you export the table, you will see the hidden dimensions and measures, and that was one problem. The second problem was, even if the visibility condition hides the individual dimension, it is still, however, calculating in the back, which obviously has an important performance impact if you're having multiple of those dimensions in one table. So with June release 2018, actually, the Click Engine API was enhanced, and what they introduced as well was the show column if condition here. So that has been necessary to stabilize. So that API was only stable in June. So we introduced that now as well on the table. So if you use show column if and you hide it, oops, there is a bug with that. It will ultimately hide the column, right, and not calculate it at all. So this will be important for your custom reports, for example, that you're using. So the visibility condition will still work to make sure the existing apps don't break, but going forward, we encourage you to use the show column if you want to. There are use cases, however, where we've seen with customers where they want to only show 3 columns, but when you export, you want to export 10 columns, the full details. In such case, you can still use a visibility condition that is still available to you as before. So these are 2 important things that we introduced the past 3 weeks, and that will be material for you in case you're using the table extensively with that capability. Right. Going further, the Vizlib Pie Chart. So that was actually an inspirational thing coming from our side. We saw, so the Vizlib Pie Chart is effectively an addition to the Vizlib Pie Chart, where you can add an additional measure to display and calculate the radius of the pie chart. So it will give you the ability to to add more context, more information to something which is just a pie chart. So almost like a fun gig, we focused on that. Just to be clear, it took us less than a day to implement this feature, but it's actually quite interesting, and because you can do cyclical analysis. Further to this, we also introduce PDF and PowerPoint printing compatibility in story mode, and very important alternative dimensions are now available in the pie chart as well. So I will quickly show you how that looks like. Boom. So this is the pie chart. Obviously, you can also use the scroll button if you want to have it clicking. And you see, you can easily here in this chart see the cost of sales as a split, right? So this is actually the angle. And then you will see also the gross profit, which is the radius across the pie chart. So you also have a legend here. And yeah, it's quite cool. I mean, if you're using, for example, months, you can then spot cyclical trends, for example, or you can just add more context. Again, in the term now of data literacy that is becoming more and more important and prevalent, obviously this is a more advanced chart. But again, it's up to you if you want to use it. We recommend sometimes it makes sense, especially doing cyclical analysis. And yeah, just add a second measure, and that's pretty much it. And then one gets displayed. Also, the ability to add alternative dimensions. Let me see where that is. I need to enable the titles, is what David is telling me. So I'm going to the dimension. Here it is. Okay, I have an older version. Right. So obviously, empowering the user and enabling a little bit the ad hoc exploration of the data without having to go into the edit menu. This is a feature where people can just flick and change, the dimension on the fly if they want to, and ultimately allows them to, explore the chart a little bit more. Just to highlight, this is a feature that is consistently applied across our visualization library. So it's available in the bar chart, Sankey chart, also in our pivot table for those of you who remember. So, we encourage that exploration, and it's the same kind of concept that we are applying. It's still missing in the line chart, so that's the last outstanding item for those of you using that, but that's on our roadmap as well and will be implemented. And yeah, and it works in PDF and PowerPoint in story mode, so you can take a snapshot. Printing doesn't work in November ClickSense desktop, but if you use it on your ClickSense server, you'll easily be able to add it and use it. So let me see. There you go. And then you can create some really nice presentations and then, export it to PowerPoint or to PDF. Yeah, and which brings me to the next topic. So that was the Vizlib Pie Chart in terms of new capabilities, features. And the last thing that we're working on, which is not so visual, but it's equally important, as I already started saying before, Vizlib printing to PowerPoint and to PDF from story mode, or even exporting the whole sheet to a PDF file. So this is stuff that has been requested a lot. In past polls and votes, about 30% of our existing Vizlib user base needed that feature as a mandatory request. So we put our heads together, and we are, as I promised, we are developing and implementing support for story mode and printing generally for the whole library. Just to clarify, this is not referring to end printing. End printing was working since June. That's fine. This is about story mode only. So with this, we have today released 7 charts, which are already working. And there are tiny refinement issues with the line chart, but the rest is working fine. And more importantly, I'm very glad to say that the rest of the library, so the remaining 9 charts, have already been implemented. We're just awaiting testing. So our commitment here is by the end of November, and I think that's what I shared in October, a month ago in the webinar, was to make the full library compatible, and we are on our way to do so. And on the next 2 weeks, you will see all those extensions being supported as well, especially the KPI designer, which most of you are using for printing purposes, which looks kind of really, really nice, will be added as well. So stay in touch. This is working. And just to give you a tiny idea of what I mean, for those of you who are not familiar with this, I've created a tiny video. It's always easier than trying to show things in life. So the purpose here is, again, you have a pivot table or a KPI object or similar, and you can here create a snapshot, right? So right click, take a snapshot, and then you have a collection of snapshots where you can add to a story. And in your story, you can create, using your data-driven charts, create presentation material ultimately based on your own data. And that can be data-driven. So I think you can, even if it reloads, it could update or could not update, you can link it or unlink it. So story mode is actually very, very, very powerful. Now, this was obviously working, but the next step has always been, export something to PowerPoint or to PDF because you want to print it or you want to share this via email. So just so you see here in this example with Vizlib Pivot Table, where we put in some regional sales analysis. This is now exported to PowerPoint, which you can then use for presentation material. So very, very powerful feature, and that'll be fully compatible by the end of this month, so in 2 weeks. And thank you very much, some of you. We're also telling Nicole for pushing us really hard to focus on that. Cool. So that's available, and we'll do a blog post around that, an announcement once it's fully there. With this, we are now continuing and talking about the upcoming roadmap. So, which is always an exciting part. So before I talk about the roadmap, the stuff that I've shown just now, are relatively quick and small, but the reason is because we're working very, very hard on the sheet menu. The Vizlib sheet menu is something that we aim to release in the next 10 days as a version 1. Again, version 1 doesn't mean that's done. We're continuously improving stuff and adding more capabilities as the time goes. So the 2 critical items for this month for us is the Vizlib sheet menu to release that, but also the printing support. Having said that, with the upcoming kind of next months, obviously, we have also other stuff that are coming in, bugs, for example, or other improvements. So we sometimes need to take priority. But our goal is to also have the combo charts by the end of December available. And then obviously the Vizlib waterfall chart and slider and click theming. Coming to that, and I'll come back to the roadmap because I have a couple of questions that I want to pose back to you, to the user audience, to see what is, interesting and relevant to you as well. But before I proceed with that, I want to show you our existing work in progress in action. So one thing that is actually quite cool is KPI object is getting an update as well this month. We are going to be introducing a new layer type to this, which is the gauge layer. The gauge chart, also known as dial chart or speedometer. I mean, there's a gauge chart already in ClickSense, but we thought it would be very, very valuable if you could add it as part of the KPI rather than creating a new extension by itself. Because in our sense, it's showing condensed information in a very small format, which I think is more a fit to KPI rather than being its own extension. For those of you who haven't used the KPI object, we have a concept of layers where you can add a text, an icon, an image, lines, bar charts, and now also a gauge chart in the near future. This was done in collaboration with Tampa General Hospital, who helped with this direction. And yeah, this will be available in November, and I can show you a little bit how it looks like. Right. So quick overview. I think most of you are already aware of the KPI object, but a very cool extension where you can basically achieve pixel perfect designs of any kind of dashboards and designs you want. You have some really cool examples that are available, and which is also the reason, because of its customization aspects, right? You have so many possibilities to achieve a KPI, and this is the reason why we also created those presets where you can predefine a KPI of your choice. This is also the reason why we created the KPI challenge, which I will show some examples during Q&A to kind of get your feedback as well and to encourage you to vote. But very important, if we create now a new KPI object that will be available shortly, let me drag and drop it into the screen. You will now have a new layer here at the top, very simple. And if you click on this, boom, it adds a KPI, a gauge layer here. And again, it's responsive. So you see, it's reacting accordingly. So this is also very, very important as a general thing for a KPI. And then you can, start adding a text, a number at the top, and you can enrich it a little bit. And that's the whole purpose of this extension as a whole. So let me put a number there just to supplement this, to make it look a little bit more like KPI. But the cool thing on the gauge is, of course, similar functionality like the native ClickSense gauge. You will have the ability to add a limit here. So you can add even, by default, you'll have 2 limits, but you can add a third limit to this, which will be not 100, but let's say 200. And value, did I do this correctly? Let's see. I need to increase the range first. Where do I increase the range? Sorry, here. Right. So you can add, thank you very much, David. You can obviously add as many limits as you want, right? And the range can be dynamic. It can be driven by variables. You can change it, make it clockwise or counterclockwise. Very important thing that's making this a little bit different is the needle. So you can change this from rather having a triangle. Obviously you can increase the size if you want to make it a bit fatter. You can make it a line if this looks nicer, or even like a target, which is basically just sitting there on the gauge itself. And obviously you can change the color to something perhaps more meaningful. Now, the cool thing is that you can add multiple needles, so multiple reference lines. So you can have perhaps, one which is sitting at 140, and then you can have another needle which is sitting at 130, and that is perhaps last year's performance, right? So this way you have it a little bit more flexible than the native one, and again, it's part of the KPI object. So you can add a legend, you can add some more text, and you have pixel perfect design and positioning of how it looks like. Really powerful feature, and that shows a little bit also, that with the KPI object we will be adding more and more layers, as in if they make sense. So obviously, if you have more ideas, please send them to us. And yeah, we look forward to releasing this probably next week. We're still doing some validation, but very, very powerful. With this, I'm now coming to, I think, the most exciting part of this session, which is the Vizlib sheet menu. So I must admit, we have been talking about the sheet menu now since for a while. And we have, and the reason, as I said, was that we had some other things in between. We obviously, want to make sure performance is fine, so we did a lot of performance improvements. Printing was important as well, so we cannot neglect the existing library in favor of just new features all the time. So that's why this was delayed. Having said that, obviously we are still working on this. We're still committed, and with this, I would like to show you the progress. A quick recap for those of you who've never heard about the sheet menu or the idea behind this is that the purpose of this is to help you control the ClickSense navigation bar, to modify and style your app, especially the top part, to be a little bit nicer, but also give your users the ability to navigate between different sheets and within your app in a much more user-friendly way. And that comes in a form of a navigation tab or even a burger menu that we will introduce. Actually, the very important thing about this is also the reason also why a lot of people go the mashup route within ClickSense is because they want to have a more presentable web app. They want to have a nice styled, branded top section of the app where people don't even know they're in ClickSense. But that's something that can be done within ClickSense if that's the only reason. So, we want to move away people from mashups into ClickSense because that's where you have the agility and the speed of development. And also that's where you don't need a coder, right? Don't forget, Vizlib is all about no coding required. So let me show you a little bit. So this is a screenshot of how we envision that. So I am now going to jump directly into the app. I think we have created a sheet menu example. Okay, which is a consumer sales. Sorry, I'm now coming in, putting it here. Right, so this is a standard app, the demo app that is available for all of you, so most of you should be familiar with it. And what we've done here is we have added our current sheet menu development and the sheet. Boom. And what you see here is that even though you're in ClickSense, the whole top panel has been modified to something which is, perhaps much more presentable, right? And much more user-friendly. Don't forget, we have not altered ClickSense. So even when somebody makes selections here, the selection bar is present here. You also have the Insight Advisor. So we're not changing anything here on the screen. We will, however, give you the possibility to hide certain stuff or modify the selection bar, right? Very important thing is also the ability to, navigate. So I have homepage, but then I also have sales, like for example, sales margin, sales analysis, sales performance, or where I can click on these things and it will navigate to the respective app. The same also, I can either group certain sheets into one app, or I can actually jump directly to a sheet by defining a whole navigation tab at the top. The same also for custom. So for example, you can have different same sheets actually. However, I think the idea here is that you can also combine this with actions, so you can make selections as you move between the sheets. So that's the idea behind the custom one. But if I go back to home, that's the whole purpose of this. You also have the buttons here, so you can still navigate with the standard stuff. Nothing is changing, but also much more. So for example, here we've added tiny eye icon, which is a custom icon. You can define it any way you want. And what this does, it's just opening up Vizlib.com. It can open up a tooltip, or it can do a certain action as you want and as you see fit, right? This is still in development, so it's all a little bit not ready, but the idea is, let me edit this just to show you a little bit the property panel. So obviously we will have presets. So if you click on this, you will have some predefined styles that we will introduce, similar to the KPI. And the goal is here that allows you to create your own presets as well, right? So for example, if your company's logo is blue, you can create your default, navigation bar. And the idea is to, at the moment it's a bit organized, but you can show and hide the logos. You can show and hide sheets. You can hide bookmarks. Perhaps you're not using bookmarks, so you can remove that icon if you wanted to. Perhaps you want to show stories at the top. Perhaps you want to, add a custom text setting or a custom icon, right? So here, for example, this is the info circle that you see at the top right, which is effectively just adding an action, which is open a URL. And that action could be something else. It could be make a selection, clear selections, and anything else that you see fit for your purposes, right? But the whole goal is to, make this look like a mashup, make this look like you're not in ClickSense. A lot of users don't really care. They don't want to have that edit button necessarily, so you can hide it if that's something you want to. But it looks a little bit like a web app, and that's a little bit the goal that we're achieving, trying to achieve here. And to show you another design that we have created is this one here. So, again, you can play around with the design. We will provide presets that you will be able to alter, right? Change the background color, change the active color, and also the collection of buttons. And and obviously, you can hide certain parts that provide you then with more real estate on the screen. But also the more important thing is, of course, that's the top navigation bar. Not always is that the best way. What we also will offer is like a sidebar of the burger menu, right? At the moment at the right, but it'll perhaps also be available on the left-hand side. But if you click on this, you'll have the same setup as at the top, right? We just replicated this, but in a much more tabular format. So you can now navigate between sheets by clicking here, for example, right? And you see that this all works nicely like a web app. The cool thing is now, and this is how we take it one step further, is that we also give you the possibility to combine it with filters, right? So somebody can make a selection here directly, right? Or as a matter of fact, you can also use the Vizlib calendar to make a selection here at the top if you want to select the date, right? So that's the purpose. People have been using web apps for a while now, different systems. So, we want to give you the same experience within ClickSense. And for you as a developer, just to highlight again, we will obviously give you some presets, so pre-configured kind of sets, but also something that we're working on, and apologies it's not ready. We're just polishing literally the last bits, is to give you the ability to create a side menu or a top menu maker on the fly. So here you click on this, and this is a little bit ugly, but you'll get the list of available sheets, and you can then start adding. So add a group, give it a name, sales, and then you can start adding the various sheets here and then create it very, very easily without much development purposes, and then ultimately start modifying this. And that brings me back, that's the goal of Vizlib, right? That you can build a web app, you can build something that looks like a mashup with no coding required. If you can use Excel, if you can spend time configuring, then you'll be able to achieve this. And yeah, that's where Vizlib is going. And we'll release the first version next week. And yeah, I look forward to hearing your first feedback around that. And if you're planning on a mashup, have a look at our extension and think again if it's necessary at all. So I hope you like that. I'm available also on for more questions on the sheet menu now during Q&A, or any feedback that you have, right? This is still in development, so now is a good time actually to ask any questions or put some thoughts or ideas in there. We would like to hear them. But with this, I would like to conclude the stuff that I'm showing to you and go over kind of to the more interactive part, which is the Q&A. However, before we start with the Q&A, I have a couple of questions that I would like to pose back to you. So first of all, you've now seen the sheet menu, right? And I want to kind of see a little bit based on our existing attendees, how many of you are using mashups? Why are you using mashups? Is mashup actually an integral part of your ClickSense strategy? So I am going to start a poll now, and which I will launch, where you can have your ability to add a vote. So you have one vote, there are 4 questions, and I see people are voting, so we already have 20%. Cool thing is we'll be able to see the results now as well very shortly. So that is very exciting. One person voted, what's a mashup? So perhaps we should have a separate webinar explaining that feature. Capability, but okay, giving it another 5 seconds. We already have over half of the attendees voted, which is exciting. Thank you very much for your participation. And 3, 2, 1, cool. Closing. Wow. So actually, look at the results. So we have, it's very, very split and very, very mixed. Obviously, as several attendees here are already Vizlib customers, I expect you to be more fans of native ClickSense. But yeah, I think the key element for us is what I wanted to kind of gauge is, why are you using mashups? Is it just because it looks nicer? And I think 30% of you have voted for that. We use mashups for presentation, branding purposes only. That kind of indicates that, is there perhaps anything that we can do that we replicate that presentation, looking, feel, nice things, but within ClickSense? And I hope that with the sheet menu, this will go in that direction, and that will help speed things up. So cool. Thank you very much for participating in that one. And yeah, so the next question I wanted to ask you, and then also there's one question on the roadmap, but I want to give you the ability to ask some things on Q&A. So not only is going to be me asking questions. So the second poll I have is obviously around our existing charts, right? You see the ones that are available, you use them already, but and if you remember, some of them are categorized as basic charts, tables. So one thing that I wanted to kind of see is like, what type of Vizlib charts are you using the most? And I will launch the vote now. You can use multiple selections. So one is the Vizlib tables, which is the pivot table and the standard Vizlib table. We have basic visualizations, like the stuff that is already available in ClickSense, but we do a little bit better, right? I want to see how many of you are putting emphasis on that. And also advanced visualizations like the Sankey chart, the Venn diagram, the KPI designer stuff, that takes it to the next level. But then also navigation and control elements. So you're able obviously to vote more than once. Obviously you're using the library extensively for more than just one thing, and that's what we expect and would expect. Over 60% voted, so that's exciting. Thank you very much for that. I'm going to give another 2, 1, boom. Cool. Closing the vote now, and yeah, showing to you the results. So Yeah, obviously Vizlib tables are actually one of the key things. So 90% are using that. So yeah, unsurprisingly, we have the same stats as well. But one thing that's kind of cool and I like is, the even split across the rest of the visualization. And that's a little bit, I think what we are after with Vizlib. It's not just to, solve one thing. We want to give you the whole experience. The reason why I put this poll there is a little bit to feedback to us, where should our new features, new capabilities, where should our focus be? And yeah, I think the answer here is mostly tables, but also the rest in equal importance. So thank you very much for voting on that. I have a last vote, but I'll leave it to the very end, which is around our roadmap for 2019. But before I go into that, I will go into questions. So actually, we don't have as many. One question is, sorry, and I didn't mention that. So the Vizlib KPI challenge voting is about to begin to be launched, I think, after the webinar. So the URL is not yet available, but it will be available in exactly less than an hour. Juste is working on that as we speak, and we will launch that. Sorry, it's not yet available, but I wanted to make it part of the KPI challenge because obviously we're recording the session as well. So one other question is the line chart. Oh, sorry, let me go back. So there's one question around the visibility condition that we have introduced in that's available in the Vizlib table. So as I just said, we also introduced the calculation if that is show column if. Let me quickly bring up the table just to bring a context. So in the edit menu, as I highlighted earlier, we have two options, which is the show column if and visibility conditions. The visibility conditions, oh, sorry, you cannot see my screen. 1 second, I need to hide the poll. Yep. Sorry, we're back. So back on the table. So yes, you can. The visibility condition is a deprecated feature. It will still be available. You can still use it, but going forward, we recommend use the show column if. And there'll be a tiny highlight here. This is a deprecated feature, but you'll still be able to use it. So there's one question if we have considered offering training to clients. And that brings me back to the point enablement. And that's a very, very important, big topic for us that we want to solve. All these nice things that I'm showing to you, you like it, you see it, but you want to do them as well. And not only you, but you want to make sure your 20 developers spread across, USA, for example, want to be able to develop in the same way. So one initiative now with Juste as well will be to create more video tutorials, video examples for individual use cases. So we've already drawn out a roadmap on producing that content. Now, when it comes to training, if you want to have it, this is something where we have partnered together with Websy. Websy are within the Click community, I think one of the best ones around offering ClickSense training, specialized one. And that's something that they do and they offer as a partner of ours. And now I would like to highlight that this is not just Vizlib pure training. This is a training where people are being brought up to speed with ClickSense. But instead of using the native charts in ClickSense, they start right away with the Vizlib charts. So they can basically get the training of both worlds. We've done this with a couple of customers who have made the transition from ClickView to ClickSense. If it's something you're interested in, I'm more than happy to put you in touch. But having said that, more enablement, more content, more video tutorials, this is something we're working on because I want you to have the ability to say to anybody who says, oh, I want to use Vizlib, sure, check out this site. It has everything you need, right? That's how you enable them, and that's how you make sure that you can then, make most out of Vizlib. And that's an ongoing thing for us and very, very important. And so there's another question. Would there be a separate calculate and visibility condition for the tables? Because they have scenarios where they want to use calculate, but not show a measure. So as I said, both features for calculation and visibility conditions are available. You can use either one or the other. You can use it at the same time. And if that's something you want to combine, it's entirely up to you. Both features will be supported. We encourage you to use show column if. There's a question around the, okay, David already is answering that question. So there's a question whether, yeah, wherever the mouse hover feature enabled for data points will be available as HTML text. And one thing that we have been doing with our bar chart, with our scatter chart, is that when you go to our individual charts, I can just show actually any, you can actually add a tooltip, right? And you can add more measures to the tooltip. As a matter of fact, you can then also add HTML to that particular tooltip to add more information to it, right? In that sense, and I think I just need to add a new measure, and that can then be, or I'm not sure exactly, perhaps David knows.
Sorry, can you repeat
HTML support in the tooltip?
Yeah. It's the third measurement.
It's the third dimension?
Measure.
Okay, it's the third measure. So that'll be added. Let's just add active risk here as well. No, David, it's not added.
Okay, can you find another one? Yeah, the fourth one.
Or is it the, yeah, the fourth one, because the third one is the bubble size. It's not there either, David. Anyway, we'll follow up on this, but we have a demo example where you can add HTML text with more context, more information when you hover over it. And this is a feature that we were looking to introduce for the rest of our library as well, but one by one in that sense. Cool. Do we have one more question? So one question is, is the library are available with November version? So actually, the webinar today was done on Click since November, so it's working. It's compatible. What we have is we're still going to do some stress testing, make sure that all our combinations of our features are working fine, but it's 95% it works, and if there are any issues, tiny ones, we will release them over the next couple of weeks. So we're looking at this, but because the technical preview phase for a November release was, I think, less than a week this time, but it's also very little changes on the backend API. But yeah, also more things will come in that direction, and we will announce it, I think, next week or 2 weeks effectively, but it's working fine. The whole demo today was done on November. Cool. Before I leave you all, or before you leave, I mean, obviously, if you have questions, please do ask, and we will look into them right away now and address them. But one other question I have is, about the future. Where shall we work? And so, as I always said, we're very agile. We're actually expanding our team in terms of developer capacity. So we're hiring 4 more developers starting in December. As a matter of fact, we will setting up a whole big office in Vizlib, Poland. So that's going to be exciting news, hopefully to be announced in December. So we will have lots of ideas, lots of capacity, and new things that we want to be working on, which go beyond the things that I've been highlighting on the roadmap. So the roadmap is just the stuff that has been kind of agreed in 2018, right? So the question is, what do we work on in 2019? And as such, I wanted to kind of give you the mic and give your voice to vote as well. So I will launch the third vote, and you can click on multiple ones, but very important, this is stuff that has been requested the most to us by our customer base. So we think that actually we should target one of those things, but again, let's put it up for vote and let's see what you guys think. So I'm launching it now. So the idea is, the question is, what shall Vizlib focus on 2019? What are the most wanted items? One of it is Vizlib commentary and write-back capabilities. So have the ability, for example, to right-click on a Vizlib table and a pivot table and add a comment, or even go to a line chart and add a reference line as a comment, right? And then have the ability to share those comments between certain user groups. Obviously, security will be key here. So it's not going to be just a very plain implementation. It needs to be advanced and done properly. But if it's done properly, it'll be available across our visualization library. So you can put a comment on our individual charts on a sheet, or within the chart in form of a reference line, of a comment, and these kind of things. So that's something that actually has been requested a lot, so we're looking at it already. The second aspect is Vizlib alerting. So there, in our view, there are two kind of alerting methods. One is, if a certain value changes in the data model, get a ping in terms of emails, SMS, or message on your phone. But the second level alerting, which I find more interesting, is that while you are analyzing, while you're in a dashboard, to have like a tiny little red, like in Facebook, like, hey, somebody liked your post, like, hey, somebody pinged you, like alerts, right? So whenever you go to your dashboard, you will have those all tiny alerts on the dashboard, which will be, associated with selections and make it much more collaborative, almost like a, data analytics, social media, effectively. So that's how we've been thinking about it. Obviously, more charts, more extensions. There's a list of unlimited visualization types, especially special ones. We're working on those as well, and more features on existing extensions, rather on releasing more. Take a step back and improve the existing one, and that also includes performance improvements. Stability improvements. There's lots of things that we can do. Extensions that have been released a year ago, we've learned a lot of lessons that we can now apply and reapply to those to improve experience. So that's something as well that's not forgotten. We had an exercise in September where for 3 weeks we just focused on performance on a couple of charts, and that's something we will put back on again. So obviously, it's one of the key elements. If it looks nice, it's good, but it needs to work nice as well. And for us, that's a priority. And last but not least, Vizlib for Tableau and Power BI. Is that something you want? I'm not sure. So let's look at the result. I'm closing the poll now, and I'm sharing the results. Right. So unsurprisingly, Right Bag and Commentaries actually has won by far. And then on the second step, the more features on existing extensions. It's kind of nice, right? Because we have lots of ideas, how we can expand on them, how we can improve them. And it's always easier adding new features to existing charts rather than creating new charts, new visualizations. And yeah, the rest is kind of equally. But, okay, fair enough. Vizlib for Tableau and Power BI, unsurprisingly, in a click audience has very low priority. But the reason to kind of highlight why I brought this up is some of you are kind of managing a center of excellence of BI, and you have more than one technology, ClickSense being one of them, right? I'm sure you also have Tableau, and if you're managing Tableau, you kind of want to have a unified experience across all different platforms. And now that Tableau is offering extensions as well, imagine you can use a Vizlib KPI object in Tableau, in Power BI, or in ClickSense. Doesn't matter which platform. That's why a little bit we're thinking about this. But cool. With this, the polls. Thank you very much for your participation. That was actually very, very, very nice to hear your voice and your thoughts. I'm looking now at the questions, if there are any last ones. So yeah, comment on alerting. That alerting would be great if a user can configure his own alerting rules, right? So, and that's a little bit where we're kind of going, right? Like click on a chart, right click, add a comment, or click on a chart, create an alert. But again, we need to figure out what kind of alert and how to make sure that alert is actually keep being tracked. But some things that I've been thinking about is incorporating that with the Google Chrome plugin. So let's say you're browsing on Google Chrome, you're not in ClickSense, and all of a sudden you get a pop-up, hey, here's an alert, here's a comment, here's something that requires your attention. You click on this and you dive directly to the chart and to the app where this is happening. So these are some thoughts. 2019 will be very exciting. We're growing the team size, and so development-wise, we will speed up, but also work on the existing stability, as I said. And yeah, thank you very much for attending. I hope you found it useful. On the dot, the recording will be made available to you and sent to you with a follow-up email today. And it's always going to be available on YouTube. So if you found it interesting, some interesting insights, then yeah, share it. And very important, sheet menu next week. Be on top of that. It's going to be a very exciting new extension, game changer in my personal view. So look forward to that and to your feedback. And as always, stay in touch. Thank you very much for attending.